Iowa Sports Review is brought to you today by Daniel Marks, licensed sales representative with United Healthcare. Turning 65? Welcome to Medicare. Call Daniel at 515-519-0040, TTY 711.
What up, Doe? I'm back. Thursday, not a Tuesday. Sorry, I was traveling for work. I will be back next Tuesday. Regular time, 8 Central, 9 Eastern, with my thoughts on what feels like about the 7th biggest game of the year for Iowa in this campaign. It feels like it's been a season and a half already, and we still have 5 to go here. But they're all big. They're always all big, but once again, it's as big as ever. And I wanted to open the show by saying and I have to get this off my chest. The Michigan State game is Saturday, and just to see College Game Day and Fox and Barstool and everyone and their mother rushing to East Lansing, Michigan for that game when, College Game Day couldn't show up in Iowa City for a 3 versus 4 matchup. It's just a joke. I mean, it's a joke on every level. Iowa and Penn State have lost since then. Penn State's lost twice since Fox was here, but it's just typical, I guess, and a joke. And there's no excuse that they weren't in Iowa City for a 3 versus 4 matchup. I got to sit here and look at, what is it, 6 versus 8, and now it's everything. And it's just how this machine works, and it's kind of gross to me. It feels like it's really gross sometimes, college football, when you're not when you're not Michigan, or you're not, hell, if they're taking a back seat to Michigan State, the ultimate we're disrespected team, then wow. I was never getting any respect. Just had to get that off my chest because it's a complete joke. All right, on to the fun stuff. I wanted to open the Iowa portion of this show by just saying how much I hate Wisconsin. I mean, people have Iowa's a special place because there's so many different rivals you can choose from. You got the Iowa State crowd, you got the Illinois crowd, you got the Minnesota crowd, you got the Nebraska haters. I dislike all those schools very much, more than most. But nobody gets me going like Wisconsin. I hate them so much. This game means so much to me because I hate them so much. And when I grew up a Michigan fan, I hated Wisconsin so much for really no reason other than I just hated them. I could not stand them. Maybe it has to do with the Green Bay Packers. I'm a Detroit Lions fan, something like that. But I cannot take Wisconsin. I hate the logo. I dislike their fans. I dislike the arrogance they have over Iowa when, they've kind of had our number, but I dislike the arrogance that you can feel. I'm going to feel it again Saturday when I'm walking into that stupid stadium to hear that dumb announcer go, 1st and 10, Wisconsin. I hate their colors. That red and white drives me insane. Any team colored red in college sports is just awful. I hate everything about it. When they play Nebraska, it looks like they're playing each other. The mascot is so awful and stupid, and Bo Ryan looked exactly like a Badger. And most importantly, and most distinctly, I hate the jump around. I loathe it. I hate the song. I'll see it Saturday. Iowa fans partaking in the jump around. I'll do it if Iowa's up 2 touchdowns or 3 in the games in hand. Then I'll start jumping around. But I hate it. I don't want to do it. I think it's stupid. I think it's become so cliched now and so played out, and it drives me crazy. I will sit down during the jump around on Saturday. Most importantly, though, I think I hate them the most because Iowa just can't seem to overcome them when needed most. It's 2015 is just such an anomaly in this series. I mean, anytime the West is on the line, or Iowa can have a really big season, 2018, 2019 come to mind. 2014 Iowa was still around. Wisconsin just beats them. They find a way, they beat them and beat them at their own game. Really, 2009 was the last time that Iowa was able to beat the Badgers with something on the line, with more on the line. It's frustrating. And so I dislike Wisconsin so much because of that, which is what I was going to have to find a way to overcome those demons on Saturday. And it's not going to be easy. It's funny. The over under is 36.5 currently. And I want to say it opened at 36.5. First to 20, maybe. I don't think either of these schools can score 20. Both defenses are really good. It's going to take some turnovers. We'll get into more of that in a little bit. But just to set up this game, and the line surprised me. And I'll get that in a second. To set up this game, though, Wisconsin goes on the road, beats Purdue, something Iowa couldn't do 2 weeks ago. Thank you. Couldn't even come close to do. And so Iowa controls their own destiny again. Thank you, Wisconsin. I was actually, as much as I hate you, I was rooting for you. And they took care of business. But some other just interesting results from around the country in relation to Iowa that I thought was just fascinating when you're trying to evaluate where Iowa is as a program right now. Penn State loses to Illinois, and I mean, it was funny watching 9 overtimes, but it was a ridiculous display. And Penn State really shouldn't have been in overtime. They got outplayed and got kind of lucky. Maryland got housed by Minnesota, and Indiana continues their tailspin. And so it's making me wonder, how good is this Iowa team? Now look, I do think Penn State's very talented. I think that's still a pretty good win. If Penn State loses out, it's not. I still like that win. Was Penn State the number 4 team in the nation? No. Was Iowa the number 3 team in the nation? No. Do I feel silly about rushing the field against a team that lost to Illinois? Yeah. But it is still a nice win. And the Iowa State win remains one of the best, I think, in the country. When you're looking at how good these teams are, Iowa State's playing as well as anyone right now. I think they're kind of rolling in the Big 12 schedule. That being said, if Iowa can just win out, I hope Iowa State loses every game, because you look at a resume in terms of the playoff, but I'm so beyond thinking about a playoff and thinking about you got to take care of business first. And losing at home like they did against Purdue shows that Iowa's not ready for a playoff. They're not close to a playoff. The playoff shouldn't be in the discussion. And so it's just an interesting thing to watch, because I do think Indiana, man, I mean, okay, getting blown out by 1,000 against Ohio State is going to happen, but man, they showed nothing this season. I mean, they got blown out of Kinnick, and it's just been, I think the closest game they had is the Michigan State game, and still Michigan State was much better than them for most stretches of that game. But on top of that, I think it's fair to say too that I don't think we know much right now. I mean, honestly, outside of Georgia having the best defense maybe of all time, I don't know what we know nationally. Oklahoma played like garbage at Kansas for most of the game, found a way to win, or Kansas found a way to lose. The Big Ten, is it just Ohio State again? Michigan State are both undefeated. They'll play this weekend, as previously mentioned, but how good are either of those teams in the grand scheme of things? We don't know. I certainly don't know. Right now, Purdue looked like the greatest show on turf against Iowa, and then was just absolutely smacked in the mouth and shut down by Wisconsin, who has lost by 4 touchdowns and 3 touchdowns previously this season. So there's a lot we don't know, and I'm not sure we'll ever know until December. Like I could see Michigan losing this week, and then could they play well enough to beat Ohio State? If they did, would we know much? I don't know in that respect. And so in terms of like evaluating playoffs, and I know a big topic this week has been, it's a big game because the first playoff rankings are coming out on Tuesday or whatever. Who cares? Just win. And Iowa's not going to be in the top 4. They're not going to be number 5. They'll probably, if they won this game, they'd be in the 8 to 10 range. And in that respect, it's just win out and see what happens. And that really brings us to this Wisconsin game. And, Nick Saban had a quote from a year or two ago. I remember he said in a press conference, I think it was 2 years ago, that really in a season, they were going into a big game. I think it was the game against LSU that they lost in the LSU championship year 2 years ago. Going into a season, he can only get his team with all that talent up 2 or 3 times a season. You can only really get up for a game. And by get up, number 4 Penn State coming into town, everyone's amped up, no letdown. You can get up for that game. And God, it feels like that as a fan too. It's like I couldn't really get up for the Purdue game. I was just hoping to get to the bye week. I wrote about it at goiowaawesome.com in my weekly piece. Going into that game, I felt really good, but there was no juice as there was in the Penn State game. And, was there a letdown? I guess. I also think Purdue kicked their ass. I don't want to take anything away from that too. So this is one of those games, though, they're going to have to get up for. And hopefully after a bye week, they can get up for it. Wisconsin's off the mat now. They looked pretty much dead, and they have a soft schedule going forward. And, Wisconsin's off the mat. And so Iowa's going to have to get up for this game. And what this game means for the program, Iowa... are they capable of getting to Indianapolis and winning? Can they win things? They've been to Indianapolis once in what's supposed to be a weak Big Ten West. It's the running joke. And it's not acceptable. I mean, and this isn't, I'm not getting into like firing. It's not going to happen, and it shouldn't happen. Because Iowa's not Ohio State. There's the talent. Everyone knows this. But just from an on-field results standpoint, it's not acceptable for them to have gone, now it will be 5 seasons without getting to Indianapolis. When you really just have to beat out Wisconsin and Northwestern, with all due respect to Minnesota's and the Illinois. I mean, they haven't shown any ability to be elite. And Minnesota had 1 year. And so it's not acceptable. But what's also not acceptable to me is getting to Indianapolis with like 3 loss, the cliche West champion 3 loss, go and be sacrificed to Ohio State. I mean, win to Saturday and really have a shot to win the Big Ten. I don't think that's asking a lot. If Iowa won out and Ohio State won out, Ohio State would probably be a 2-touchdown favorite in Indianapolis and might beat Iowa by 2 touchdowns, but at least go in there with a chance. But, because they could lose Saturday and it's not over. I mean, they can still, with the way the West is going, I could see Wisconsin losing again. I mean, stuff can happen. But is it really a lot if, you lose to Purdue, you lose to Wisconsin, you kind of wobble into Indianapolis, you get housed and go to the Citrus Bowl? So I think what's on the line this week is Iowa can show that it was a blip. It was some sort of letdown. It was something other than we're in trouble and we're just going to be cannon fodder if we somehow make our way to Indianapolis, if we can even get there. There's a question here with a Wisconsin at 4-3 and went over top 10. No, I mean, if they are, then there's an issue. If they're still hungover 14 days later after a very humbling, dare I say, an embarrassing loss. I mean, you entered that game number 2 in the country with everyone watching you, already getting no respect. If there's a hangover, then that is a coaching issue. I mean, this team is not, I don't think this team is that bad that they showed against Purdue. And so there should be a bounce back. Now, they could bounce back and lose, but you know, that should not be an issue. No more hangovers. That you don't get any more. There's 5 weeks left in the season. Suck it up. What are we hanging over from? Dropping 10 spots in the polls? It's not acceptable. And to answer your question there, I hate them all. But I guess I would defer to Fox because of Bob Stoops just yelling "Go Hawks" a million times. And they came to Iowa City. College Game Day is the biggest joke on the planet, and but ESPN is too. And nobody should watch it. Everyone will watch it, but nobody should, and I won't. I will boycott this weekend and going forward until they return to Iowa City. Fat chance of that ever happening, unless Iowa's in a 1-2, then maybe they would think about it for a second. But I'm not bitter. And I can't put a lot on Ferentz in losing the Purdue game because I think we just saw in that game our worst nightmare. Meaning, in every single game except for that Purdue game, Iowa's offense started with a short field thanks to a million turnovers that the defense was forcing, and they put themselves in a very fortunate situation to kick field goals, go 40 yards for a touchdown. Against Penn State, they knocked out the quarterback. That really saved Iowa. No regrets that Iowa knocked them out. The defense knocked them out. And so I think it was a perfect storm of Iowa can't stop David Bell. I went over this last weekend, but there's just no answer. I hope I never see him again in Kinnick. I hope he plays for the Lions going forward because he's a beast, but I never want to see him in Iowa again. So I can't put it on Ferentz. I put it on this offensive line. I mean, there's no running game. For as good as the defense has been, they can't get to the quarterback. That has been a problem. And yeah, I think it's that simple. And they were not forcing turnovers, and Purdue played a hell of a game on offense, and Iowa could not get off the field. And when Iowa was forced to drive 80 yards, when they had to put together long drives, they couldn't do it. And that was very disappointing. And I think that's worse than, they were just hung up. If it was just a hangover and, they lost like a 13-10 game and they couldn't get out of their way, I'd feel a lot better. I think that's the problem here. And yet, there could be real problems at Iowa. One thing that's going to be on the coaching staff, and we talked about if they come out hungover, but something that'll be on the coaching staff is offensive adjustments, and if there are any. I've been reading all week about how Brian Ferentz took the bye week was great for the offense because he had a quote here. You're tweaking some things here, moving some people or whatever it may be. But we're not going to make wholesale changes or reinvent the wheel. We just got to fall back to what we are. And, right now, I don't know what this offense is, because an Iowa offense that can't run the ball is kind of listless, and they cannot run the ball. And I've seen Tyler Goodson get some flack about not hitting holes and stutter stepping too much and backing up and going more. He's not running east-west. He's running too north-south. I mean, he's 4th in the Big Ten in rushing with the way this offensive line has performed, with almost no passing game that can really take a lot of pressure. I mean, no push. I think that's a miracle. I think he's been incredible this season to be 4th in the conference. He has 562 yards this season. And we're still waiting for that game, but I don't know. I think when you talk about real problems at Iowa, is this what they are? We're 7 games in, there's 5 to go. It feels like this is it. And yeah, there should be some improvement. Again, going into the Purdue game, I thought they ran the ball late against Penn State pretty well. And then the Purdue game, it was, now part of that one, they couldn't run to start the game, but I think Goodson had 2 carries in the second half. When they were down, they had to start throwing, and that's just, if they're in have to throw situations, it's over. I mean, it's just deadly. Unless they've made, and I'm not sure, it doesn't seem like anyone's quite sure what they can do on offense over the bye week, what adjustments they can make. I don't know, outside of run the ball better. I mean, I have some suggestions. I don't know if they'd work. I've been saying for about 5 weeks now, especially since the Maryland game, get Tyler Goodson more involved in the short passing game. If you're going to run east-west through the tackles, I would use more of an IKM, even a Gavin Williams, just a bigger back. Goodson's so good in space. I think you can hurt Wisconsin in space if you can get him out there with the ball because he's that good. And Wisconsin red is worse. The Alabama Crimson. It's actually not too bad of a, that red for Wisconsin is so bad. It is just, it's like your nose is bleeding. Among everything. I mean, the logo, don't get me going. But some of the rushing totals for Iowa, they ranked 12th in the Big Ten in total rushing yards per carry, and yards per game. Last year, they were in the top 5 in each of those. I mean, it's just not good. It's not good at all. And so that's going to be the story of this game. I mean, in a nutshell, if we wanted to simplify it, it's who's going to run the ball more better, I think. And the total's 36. It maybe should be 26 because I don't know if either team's going to really run the ball well. Iowa's been pretty good defending the run too this season. But some things I took away from that Wisconsin game. First of all, it was a catch-22 because you needed Wisconsin to win. And I guess I was hoping for like a 5-3, 9 overtime win where they didn't look very good. Wisconsin looked very good against Purdue. That being said, again, I don't know what anyone is. Like I've seen Wisconsin look very bad. I mean, their offense is horrific most of the time. And it wasn't because Graham Mertz threw the ball 8 times last week. He threw the ball 8 times. I mean, that's just, that should not be a recipe to beat Iowa. It should not. And maybe that's the only way Wisconsin can win. But if he's only throwing the ball 8 times and Wisconsin's going to win this game, Iowa's in trouble in many ways. And I hope Bo Ryan's not at the game. That would really suck. I don't like him, but I'm sure he's a fine guy. I had a couple of run-ins with him when I wrote for the Daily Iowan, actually, covering the basketball team. But back to the game, that was a funny comment. He threw the ball 8 times, and I think he averaged 6 yards an attempt, and that is not a recipe to beat this Iowa team. It's just not. It's not going to happen. A couple other things. Purdue had minus 13 rushing yards on 6 sacks. Iowa had 1 sack on Purdue. I don't even remember it. I'm trying to remember when it was. I think it was, when it was kind of getting away. I think Van Valkenburg had it. I'm trying to remember their sack, but Wisconsin had 6 sacks. They were getting to the quarterback, and by virtue, Purdue couldn't run the ball. I mean, Wisconsin's averaging 55 yards rushing per game allowed, which is outstanding. And Purdue had negative 13 rushing yards, leading them to throw the ball a million times, leading David Bell to only have 6 catches for 33 yards. That's the recipe to beat them. I mean, you force Purdue to just throw on every play and you can key in on them. And so the key to this game is going to be who can just find the inches and scrape across, a couple of points. It's going to be so cliche, Iowa, Wisconsin. It should be very ugly. I think this is one of the rare games where Iowa actually has a better offense than the competition. I don't care statistically what it says. Wisconsin's offense is awful, and Iowa's defense is really bad, or Iowa's offense is really bad. But they do have Tyler Goodson, and they do have some guys on the outside that can make some plays. And again, the Keegan Johnson and Arlen Bruce combination, they've shown much more than most of the Iowa receivers have all year in limited, big time plays against Penn State, but limited action, quite frankly. They should be getting more play, more run out there. And I don't know, try some reverses. They've done that a little bit, but try more of that. Get more creative maybe with the Wildcat. Just find some guys in space and get some playmakers with the ball. You have to do something other than stretch run to the left, stretch run to the right. We're going to run between the tackles. It's not going to work on first down. And so those are the adjustments I'm hoping to see, and just find some breathing room. And, here we go back to the defense. They're probably going to have to force a couple of turnovers at least. It's going to take 2 or 3 at the very least in this game. Wisconsin did turn it over. They only threw the ball 8 times. They did fumble it away twice to Purdue. That's encouraging. Iowa has feasted on turnovers this season. It's worked. And so the scouting report on Wisconsin is just the same as it usually is. Not a really great quarterback, and it's really the same as it usually is in Iowa. Not a really talented quarterback, although I thought Nate Stanley was outstanding, but not a really talented quarterback. Running game should be there, although against this Iowa defense, it shouldn't be there. That was the one thing that kind of popped my eyes open. Wisconsin had 2 running backs. Malusi is the name, 149 yards on 27 carries, and Allen 140 yards on 12 carries, including a 70-yarder. If you're doing that to anyone, you're going to win. And, they racked up 290 on the ground. That is not going to happen. That will not happen Saturday. Mark my words. If it does, watch out. Also, Wisconsin went 1 of 11 on third down against Purdue. Really struggled there. Did not look good in certain situations. And that's a very nice number. If you're looking at it in a vacuum, you wouldn't know that Wisconsin won the game by 17. So there is a lot to like there from that game. Most importantly, I think Wisconsin beat Purdue, and so we don't have to worry about Purdue again unless Iowa loses. So just went out. Thank you, Badgers. As much as I hate you. But when you look at this game, and James Franklin doesn't even know he's playing this week. That's true. I think he said they're playing Illinois. Feels like he's taking the USC job because he's actually commenting on it publicly, which is blowing my mind. There's a never saw an over under. I'm sorry, it's just making me laugh. Never saw an over under the single digits before. It feels like it should be. Yeah, it really feels like it should be. And this goes back into the scoring or the scouting report on these teams. It's who's scoring. Nobody's throwing the ball. I mean, if Iowa has the more potent throwing game in a game, which it looks like they do, this is, over under 36, hammer the under. I mean, if these teams eclipse 36, or was it 36.5 right now? It's incredible. And no, I don't think. See, that's the thing too, and this goes back to the college game day stuff. It's like, if Iowa's number 2 in the nation, if they're good, everyone else should be bad. That must be the reason. And I look defensively. They're right statistically. They're right up there with Georgia. I mean, they're right up there with the best defenses in the country. Iowa has not been doing it how you would normally do it. They're not 6-1 by playing well on both sides of the ball. I mean, Georgia plays really well on offense and or elite borderline NFL on defense, it seems. Was it an aberration? I think that remains to be seen. The game I keep falling back on, if you're going to take the aberration route, is Iowa State. And that remains an outstanding win and one of the top 5 wins, I think, in the country as of right now. And that's a really good team. So I wish I had an answer for you, but I think the Big Ten is pretty good. I'm worried that it's just Ohio State again, and it feels like it's just Ohio State again. Michigan State, Penn State doesn't have a chance this weekend, but Michigan and Michigan State will see when they play OSU. I think both of those teams are much better than Penn State. It seems at this point. We'll see what Ohio State is from those two games, and then hopefully against a one-loss Iowa team. But I don't know if the Big Ten is just what it's always been, because it kind of looks like what it's always been all of a sudden, with Ohio State just blasting teams, or if there is 2-3 teams that could do something. In the West, it's only Iowa. I mean, Minnesota only has one loss. They lost to Western Michigan, I think, at home. So it's only Iowa's the only one that has the chance to get to the playoff or anything like that. But we're not talking about that because they have to get through Wisconsin on Saturday. Iowa fans, on Friday before the game, I will be there tomorrow in Madison, making the drive from Des Moines to Madison, 4.5 hours. They can go to the Hawkeye Huddle, someplace called Whiskey Jack's Saloon, I think, in Madison. I think that's it. Double check. I would search Hawkeye Huddle. It'll come up. I'll be there. I'll probably be doing, it's a big game again. So I'm going to have to self-medicate a little bit. Not too crazy because it's an early kick on Saturday. But speaking of Saturday, before I forget, Adam Jacobi, who you saw last night with Chuck Long, which was outstanding, and myself will, for all intents and purposes right now, be doing a post-game show following Iowa and Wisconsin, live from Madison, somewhere from Madison. If Iowa wins, I'll try and do it from the 50-yard line as I'm laying on a goalpost that I've torn down. But live from Madison, that should be about 5 Central. We're going to shoot for 6 Eastern, following what we hope will be a very, very big win for the Hawkeyes. So Saturday, look for that in the middle of an exciting weekend of college football that I hope is very good to all of us in Hawkeye land. Somewhere. Yeah, exactly. I've heard an Airbnb. I've heard of some hotel room. I don't know, but I swear I'm going to be doing it from the hood of my car, I think, in 30-degree weather as it's raining hail or something. But it'll happen. I'll make it happen. Adam will make it happen no matter what. I didn't know Gary Dolphin had a bar in Dubuque. Is that common knowledge? Because you know what? Maybe I'll swing through there tomorrow. I got to hit that. I got to hit New Glarus, win in Wisconsin. The only good thing to come out of Wisconsin, I hear, New Glarus Brewing, Spotted Cow. And then it's up to Madtown at the Hawkeye Huddle, 4 o'clock, I think, at Whiskey Jack's. I think that's what it's called, in Madison. Anyways, so Iowa, the biggest piece of news, I think, to come out of this week, no Riley Moss. We were hoping he'd be back. He had an extra week. Left the Penn State game in the first half. He's still out. It's still next man up. I don't know how big of a hole that was Saturday because they couldn't stop anyone throwing. Spotted Cow, yeah. Iowa is close to Wisconsin. Just see, that bothers me about Wisconsin, the state as a whole. Why not have it in Iowa? Just somewhere in Iowa. We're bordering the state. But I digress. Riley Moss, I don't know how big a loss that was against Purdue, only because they just couldn't stop David Bell. They couldn't stop anyone. And it just got out of hand. So if this secondary is struggling against this passing attack this week, I would argue that this is a game that they can afford not to have Riley Moss in, just because Wisconsin's so bad throwing the ball. I hope Graham Mertz throws the ball a lot. He won't. He's out. Look for Terry Roberts again. And I think the biggest thing, though, Luke Lachey is back, and he was not in against Purdue. I believe it was Josiah Miamin, and he looked at young kid. He just didn't seem ready. Didn't seem impactful. Didn't seem ready. I think Lachey, he can do more. He can block a little bit more, catch a few more balls, take more pressure off Sam Laporta, who all of a sudden is their only downfield threat, it seems. That has to change too. He's going to have a big game. He always has to have a big game because it's Iowa. And if the tight end doesn't have a big game, they're probably losing by 24 to Purdue at homecoming. The story of this game will just be, we know what Wisconsin is. We know what Iowa is. Can Brian Ferentz find some matchups? Can he retool bits of this offense to get the running game going, to just find some space? It's been really painful watching this offense operate. There are a couple of notes I thought were very interesting going into this week. Trends. First off, the line for this game was 3.5 Wisconsin. Surprised me at first. It really surprised me. I guess again, I just keep thinking, like, I don't know. It's almost like the first 7 weeks never happened and Wisconsin didn't lose by 28 at home and in Chicago, and then 3 touchdowns at home against Michigan. It's weird, but nevertheless, Iowa is a 3.5 point underdog. I would take Iowa to at least cover within 3. I don't think Wisconsin can even score 6. I'm not sure Iowa can either, but that really surprised me. Place to be easy. So I think we have some MSU fans here. Anyways, that was surprising. And a couple of historical nuggets. I was 3-3 out of a bye since 2015. And in 2015, they beat Maryland. 2016, lost to Penn State. 2017, lost at Northwestern. 2018, won at Minnesota. 2019, lost at Wisconsin. And then 20, they beat, I believe it was Middle Tennessee State out of the bye. And this program has not been great out of a bye. I mean, it really hasn't. They're actually, I believe they're 2-10 in their last 12 straight up coming out of a bye. So historically, it's not looking great in that respect out of a bye. I don't know what to say other than eek. And I think that's coaching. I think a lot of that can be coaching when there's a trend that skewed. What's going on out of bye weeks? I don't know. Are they just not making adjustments? And I think that's my biggest fear, is that we just see more of the stretch runs because that's Iowa's identity and that's what Iowa does. And we have to run the ball between the tackles and forever and ever and ever and ever. I mean, the running game got so bad against Purdue, they couldn't sneak the ball twice for, I think it was 2 yards. And so stats like that just kind of keep me up at night a little bit, just because what is going on there now. It's so skewed that you have to think at some point Iowa will win one of these games coming out of a bye. But that screams they just keep doing what they always do. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And that's how the offense has looked really all season. You know, we're just going to keep running the ball, even when they're really only when Maryland was just turning the ball over on every play and had nothing on defense. Iowa was throwing more in the second half, but heck, even against Penn State late in that game, and it worked because they were pushing the pile, but they were just running. The only 2 times was they broke tendency was the Maryland game when they were up and the Purdue game when they were down. They had to start throwing the ball a million times. Even against Iowa State, it wasn't working all day, but they went into a shell for other reasons. The defense had it on lockdown. But I worry about that immensely because they can't break, or they can't just fall back on that. Cause then all of a sudden now you're looking to hope at, 2-3 turnovers and a 10-9, 10-6 ugly win, which I'll take anything. I'll take 2-0 in 9 overtimes. I'll take it. Just get out of there with the win. But it feels like they need to look okay too. I know we all just want to win, and I'll take a win over everything. But man, you just start to believe in this team and the program, and then Purdue happens, and it's like, maybe it's all an anomaly. I mean, several people have already chatted today, and in this show that isn't an anomaly. Is the Big Ten just bad? And I'm one of these. I like to defend the Big Ten West. I think the Big Ten East. All these people talk about realignment, and it's so weak. Outside of Ohio State, I just ran the numbers for an article a couple of weeks ago, but outside of, if you take Ohio State out of it, the Big Ten West has a better win percentage overall than the Big Ten East. Total, overall, better. So I think a lot of that is just whatever division Ohio State's in. Yeah, you're going to get probably a 10-win boost. Hashtag Penn State lost to Iowa and then Illinois. So I'm one that defends the Big Ten West. That being said, if a 3-4 loss Iowa or Wisconsin stumbles in Indianapolis to play a 1-loss Ohio State, undefeated Michigan State, there's no defense in that, and it's a joke. And so, yes, win, but win also where I can go, okay, they beat Wisconsin. It was a nice win, but, they can keep this going. And maybe their identity, and this leads me to my next point. What is the identity of this team? I don't know. Is it just hope for 4 turnovers and a short field and paper cut a team to death? Because that will win you, if you rely on that, you might be able to get out of Madison. You might be able to win out, but you're not beating Ohio State. You're not winning anything like that. You're not going to beat a team in the Rose Bowl. Like Stanford won't be there, but Oregon. So I think, the loss to Purdue could be a good thing if it forced Iowa into some adjustments that opens up this offense. And I think that's the only way that you can come out of this game if the offense just looks a little better, if they're finding a little bit more and it works and they can get out of this game with a win and carry this forward. But other than that, it's it just feels like it's going to be a 10-6, 10-9 game. I can't believe that over under is 36.5. And again, what is their identity? I think that's a big question out of this. Is it horrific offense and really good defense? I hope not. I hope it's a really good defense and a bad offense, because a bad offense would be better than what they're putting out there right now. I say no. I am, look, Wisconsin, again, big rival of Iowa's. I think it's different if you're a Northwestern fan. Do whatever you want to do. An Iowa fan, I can't jump around. I can't do it. I just can't. Went to Iowa, bleed black and gold, all the cliches, driving up there for the game. I'm not jumping around. That being said, Michigan fans and the team most impressively did the jump around. I think they were up 17 going into the fourth. If I was up 17 or 21, I'm going to do it because I'm not sure their fans are going to do it. I'll be glad to do it. So I'll add the caveat. If you're up big, do it, because I'll be dancing all night. I'll be dancing in our post-game show. I'll open with the jump around in the post-game show if Iowa comes out with the win. And I'll have a video of me doing the jump around if they're up by more than 2 touchdowns or more going into the fourth. That'll be the greatest moment ever. I've been to many games at Wisconsin. I've never done the jump around. I've been to a hockey game between Michigan and Wisconsin. I will not do the jump around. They did it there. I hate the tradition, even though everyone loves it, I guess. I don't know. I think the answer for next year is 1 year older, 1 year wiser. Again, as much as we want to bash the offensive line or the run game, the offensive line is young. I think that it's a tired argument when you haven't. It's not like Iowa's coming off of, a Big Ten title team or a team that almost won the Big Ten championship. Again, they haven't been to Indy in a while. So it's tougher to take and play the young card when you're not getting places, when you're not winning things, plural. I think that's the answer. I don't think there's much to be made of next year. I think maybe the biggest thing offensively would be the quarterback position. And I say that quite apprehensively because there's a couple of things. One, I think the coaches absolutely love Spencer Petras. There's been no comments about any of his play that I've really taken as, oh, he might be in trouble. And I don't think any of those other guys are ready. Now, spring practice, fall practice, spring, all of that, and another season under their belts. Maybe Deuce Hogan's ready. I don't know. He hasn't even seen the field. I think that's unrealistic until we would see something of note, or unless Petras absolutely crumbles. But, again, in Petras's defense, when you're not running the ball, it's tough to do anything as a quarterback. That being said, he threw 4 picks. That can't happen. Yeah. So I don't, in terms of next year, I can't look at next year. I don't know who's going to be here next year. And I just think it's one of those, they're going to be a little older and a little better. And that offensive line will have another year that they'll have gelled, and have come together. But I can't think about next year right now. It's all about this year right now, because there is a lot in front of them. And there's a lot to be out to be won out there. And look, it could be an anomaly. Maybe that was just their bad game. That could happen too. I'm not discounting that. I just think, it's Wisconsin, and we all have the nightmares of going there. I was there 2 years ago, and Nate Stanley was stopped on a 2-point conversion by about a half an inch, and that ended Iowa's hopes to win the West. And this has just been the program that they cannot get past, and it's maddening. And it drives me insane. And it's one of the reasons why I hate them so much and will not be doing the jump around at all. Gordon Bohannon was better in the pocket than Petras. That's true. I mean, the biggest knock I've had on Petras all year has been the sacks, and the pocket presence doesn't feel like it's there, and he's still missing guys. As much as I am not in love with this group of wide receivers, he doesn't see the entire field, and he stares down players. And last week I mentioned this. Iowa got lucky. It should have been a worse game against Purdue, because he threw a pick six. The Purdue defender just dropped it. I mean, that was on the right before Iowa. I think it was when they missed the field goal early in the game, or it may have been to the touchdown that they got. But regardless, he threw a pick six and Purdue dropped it, and that was at the 15-yard line. And so he has to be better. I mean, I get it, no running game. I just made an excuse for him, but it shouldn't be an excuse. He does have to be better, and he should be able. I'm not saying he should be able to throw on this Wisconsin team, but the adjustments should be there to open up easier throws, get him in a groove a little bit. I know that he seems to have that 5-yard into the tight end down pat, but you can only run that 300 times a game, and Laporte is going to be blanketed when Wisconsin realizes Petras is going to throw the ball downfield more than 15 yards ever. And so I think a lot of that is adjustments by coaching, but yeah, Petras has to be better. And I was really encouraged coming out of spring camp, or out of fall camp, I'm sorry, that he was the starter. I mean, I thought for sure there'd be a quarterback competition a little bit, maybe Hogan, and he was the guy. And, and he has to show he's won, but he has to show that he can make the plays down the stretch. And he did against Penn State, and then he crumbled against Purdue. So he has to take that next step for this team to do anything this year. He has to get better, as the offensive line does, as the receivers have to. Really, I don't know much more you can do. The defense, maybe the defensive line, as good as they've been, they need to get to the quarterback more. And, I know Phil's trying. Phil Parker, he's been drawing up some schemes. You can see it. They just have to get to the quarterback more. And Mertz should be susceptible to that, but they won't throw the ball more than 10 times, I don't think, unless they have to this week, Wisconsin. Yeah, Nicholas, it makes a great point. He doesn't. I mean, that's clear. And I think that's the perfect storm of, he doesn't have great pocket presence, but there's people constantly in that pocket too. I mean, the pass pro has been okay at times, but it has been great. And so for that reason alone, run a swing pass to Goodson. One more of that. Maybe try a halfback pass. Maybe try an Arlen Bruce throw the ball, or a Nico, try more of that. Try to get something going. Get the ball out quicker. He's still taking 3 to 4 step drop backs, it feels like. And yeah, it's rarely a clean pocket, it seems. And he stepped up and made some throws. And he stood in there and taken some shots and made some throws. But it all came crumbling down against Purdue. And maybe the adjustment is better pass pro. So I need to see something on offense. If by the end of this first quarter, nearing the end of the first half, it's the same old stretch run. And look, if they're trying different things and it's not working, then the offense just isn't good, and the defense is going to have to find a way to bail them out in every game. And that's what they are. And then we'll know, my original question, we'll know what their identity is. But I do think there's something there. I don't think Petrus is this bad. And I don't know what his ceiling is for being good, but it's got to be better than what we've seen. And really, is this offensive line that bad? 7 games in, maybe they are, but it feels like adjustments can open up something there. I mean, for such a run-oriented program, over under 1.5 interceptions for Mertz. I can't predict this, because if I say over, Iowa won't have any, and if I say under, they probably won't have any. So I'm not going to predict. I'm too nervous about this game. I don't know. I mean, I've even had, visions of Mertz throwing the ball around the field. I don't think that's going to happen. I hope he throws the ball a lot, because then, they'll pick him off 3 or 4 times. But he's not going to throw the ball. I'd be surprised if he has more than 12 attempts. I don't think 8's going to be the number, because I don't think they're going to be running for 330 yards, whatever they did against Purdue. But he's not throwing. I'm not having him throw unless it's the fourth quarter and Iowa's up 2 touchdowns and you just have to throw the ball. I'm not having him throw near 15 times in this game if I don't have to, if I'm Wisconsin. And they might have to, but I think that number only starts to jump if Iowa's up and then they're desperate in the fourth and Wisconsin's throwing the ball around the field. In that case, I'll be doing the jump around for sure. So I think this is a very an eye-opening game on every level. I think you could even come out of this with Iowa winning, and I hate to say this because they don't win against Wisconsin a lot now, but you could even come out of this winning and not feeling great. Because it just feels like that 10-6 stuff is there's such a ceiling on that, and there's such a cap on. Yeah, it's cute. 10-6, Iowa, Wisconsin, they win, but can they really beat Ohio State? And really, what good is all this if you're just going to go to Indianapolis and get blown out? And if this is a team again that could lose every week, you could beat Wisconsin, and then are we going to go into the Minnesota game going, I don't know, this team, this offense is still pretty bad. They could get popped. They have to go to Nebraska. They could get popped. So I want to see more than just scrape across a win. I want to preface that again by saying I will take that, and then we'll deal with this next Tuesday. We'll deal with that. But that's what I'm looking for out of this week. 2 weeks ago, I was rushing the field thinking this was a top 4 team and a college playoff contender. And I hope that was not a grave miscalculation on my part. Just want to remind everyone to, you can see it up there. There it is. To follow us at IA Sports Review on Twitter and Facebook, Iowa Sports Review. Also hit the subscribe button on our YouTube page under this video. I will be with you. This is a rare Thursday night appearance. I was on the road last week. And so last week, I'm doing a lot of on location shows. Last week it was from Boston for no real reason attached to Iowa. This week I'm in Des Moines, and then 2 days from now I should be doing a show with my I guess partner in crime in this endeavor, Jacobi, in Madison, live from Madtown. after the game Saturday. We're going to shoot for 5 Central, 6 Eastern. And then I'll be back with you next Tuesday, same time, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, to look back on Wisconsin. I will have many more thoughts after a weekend to digest and a drive back to Des Moines, and then a look ahead to next week. But it really feels like there's so much on this game that, and it's so cliched because I've said this 5 weeks now, but there's so much riding on this game besides just winning. I think it's reestablishing faith. I think it's reestablishing a lot of that for this program. No, I don't think it goes to the Stoops question, only because, what is this year? It feels like it's about year 30 of Ferentz, 2022, I think, 22, 23. He's not going anywhere. I mean, it's just not going to happen. And quite frankly, at this point, it shouldn't happen. I mean, it would be dumb. It wouldn't make any sense as of right now. Iowa is 6-1 and they're ranked number 9 in the country. Let's pump the brakes a little bit until further notice. As I stated on my last show last week, I am not a fan of, if you told me at the beginning of the year they'd be 6-1 going into Wisconsin and ranked 9, but if you told me they'd be 6-0 and number 2, we can play that game. I'm not a fan of that. It's a week by week thing. So no, I'm not happy that they're 6-1, number 9, when they were 6-0, number 2, playing Purdue at home. But they are 6-1 and number 9 right now. And so until further notice, until this program craters, which it won't under Ferentz, he's done too good of a job. It's too good of a program. We can't talk about Stoops. I want Bob Stoops to come here when Kirk is retired. It's going to be Mark. I would bet my life on it at this point that it's Mark, but that is just for another day. I think you could start talking about replacements if Iowa won the Big Ten this year. I do think it would be a chance he would retire. I mean, that would be an incredible way to go out. But that's no. They lose this weekend. No, there's no talk of new coaches. It's just not going to happen, and it shouldn't. Kirk has earned too much equity. As you can see, Iowa gets no respect, and it's not easy to win here. So I think that should be taken into account too. This isn't Ohio State with, Iowa's struggling to win Big Ten West with 4- and 5-star recruits and a lot of 5 stars. So no, but I'd love to see Bob Stoops one day on the sidelines, even if it's just for a game. I just want to see him, maybe shotgun a beer and yell "Go Hawks." That would be unbelievable. And on that note, we have gone a very nice. We're approaching the top of the hour here, and this was sort of a 2-parter episode with the bye week. But I was hoping this would be a standalone. I think we covered a lot. How much I hate Wisconsin, and how big this game is for Iowa, what they need to do to win the game. And it starts with the running game, run. Unless all the adjustments with the passing game, and they're going to come out like they are the Kansas City Chiefs of 2 years ago. Chiefs don't look so good right now, but if Petrus comes out and he looks like old school Pat Mahomes, then Brian Ferentz has earned his weekly paycheck. But there's a lot to watch for in this game. I'm going to guess it's ugly. I'm not predicting. I'm not one for predictions. They're always wrong. I don't like it. Then I start blaming myself if it goes the other way. I get in my head. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to predict. I wouldn't touch this game from a betting perspective, although I would take the under. I don't think either of these teams are scoring 20 points. That's just me. Weather should be kind of crummy in Madison. It's going to be cold. It'll have rained the night before. I think it's just going to be cloudy. I don't think there's going to be any rain or anything. Not that these teams are going to be able to throw anyways. And last time they won at Camp Randall, lest we forget, 2015's magical year. And as much as I love that 2015 team and nothing can take it away from them, Wisconsin turned the ball over on a botched handoff on the 1-yard line. And don't forget that, because they needed, and it might take something like that. that's just the type of game these two teams I think will play. 10-6. I think George Kittle had the only touchdown of the game on that bootleg from CJ Beathard following a Desmond King interception. I think he had a couple in that game. So it should look a lot like that, which many Iowa games seem to nowadays. And one of those coin flips, one of those classic Kirk Ferentz coin flip games. And let's hope that the coin falls on Iowa's side. But no, I want them to look good. All right, maybe that's asking too much, but just get through it, and hopefully they look good. Hopefully they come out of this 7-1, and we can move on to the final 4 games of the season, and maybe look ahead to Indianapolis with more than just, boy, I hope they, if they win this, maybe they can get there. Maybe we can see that really playing out now. But should be I was going to say a fun one. I don't know about that, but it should be interesting. Let's say that. It should be interesting. Remember, following the game, 5 p.m. Central, 6 Eastern, Adam and I will be on from somewhere in Wisconsin, in the Madison metro area, with a post-game wrap-up, thoughts on what happened at Camp Randall on Saturday. It's an 11 a.m. kick, which is weird this season. Iowa's first 11 a.m. kick, and we are in game number 8, which is crazy to me. It seems like Iowa is the king of 11 a.m. kicks. First one, and it's not even in Iowa City. It's in Madison. Should be interesting. A lot riding on it. We'll see what happens. Once again, subscribe up at the top. IA Sports Review on Twitter, Iowa Sports Review on Facebook. Hit subscribe on the YouTube. And look for me next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, my original time. And we'll see you then. Actually, not Tuesday. We'll see you Saturday from Madison. And what should be a very interesting, pressure-filled Iowa-Wisconsin slugfest that hopefully the Hawks come out on top of. And my name's Tom Clos. You can follow me at Classy Hawkeye on Twitter. Look for my stuff. I'll have something running tomorrow on GoIowaAwesome.com, where Adam also writes for. And we'll see you then. Go Hawks, and have a great weekend. Bye.